Picture this for a moment. What if you could plant your garden just one time and watch it deliver fresh harvests season after season without ever having to start from scratch again? If that sounds impossible, I have news for you. It's not only possible, it's something thousands of gardeners are already doing. Today, I'm revealing 9 extraordinary perennial crops that will produce food for you year after year with barely any effort on your part. If you've been longing for a garden that cuts down on work, slashes your grocery bills, and keeps your table stocked with wholesome, nourishing produce, then you're about to discover exactly what you need. And here's something special. The crop sitting at number 1 is so unusual that most people who've been gardening for decades have never even heard of it. You definitely won't want to miss that one. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my mission is helping gardeners like you work smarter instead of harder. This channel is all about taking the complexity out of gardening so you can enjoy bigger harvests without burning yourself out in the process. If the thought of transforming your yard into a reliable source of fresh food excites you, you've come to exactly the right place.
Before we get into our countdown of these amazing perennial crops, do me a quick favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, then tap the notification bell. When you do that, you'll get alerts every time I release new gardening strategies that can turn your garden into a low-maintenance, high-yield treasure. All right, let's get started with the list. We're kicking things off with number 9. Sliding into the number 9 spot, we have rhubarb. This is a tough, reliable perennial that delivers harvest after harvest without asking for much in return. What is it about rhubarb that gardeners find so appealing? Well, once you get it settled into the ground, this plant can thrive for more than 10 years, sending up those signature thick red stalks every single spring. It's among the very first crops to emerge when winter releases its grip, which means you'll have fresh ingredients ready to use while everything else in your garden is still dormant. And here's the best part. After that first year, rhubarb demands almost no attention from you at all. Now let's go over the planting basics. Rhubarb does best in soil that drains well and has plenty of fertility and organic richness. It prefers full sunlight, though it can handle some shade if necessary. When you're putting it in the ground, make sure to space each crown roughly 3 feet away from the next one. This plant really expands as it gets older, so it needs that room. And keep in mind, rhubarb is an investment in your garden's future. Once it's planted, it's going to keep rewarding you for many years ahead. Taking care of rhubarb couldn't be much easier. Give it regular water when the weather turns dry, and when fall arrives, spread mulch generously around the crown to help it survive the winter cold. Don't harvest anything during that first year. Let the plant put down deep roots and build up its energy. After that initial season passes, you'll find yourself with more stalks than you know what to do with. When harvest time rolls around, there's one critical rule to remember. Only the stalks are safe to eat. The leaves contain oxalic acid, which makes them toxic, so they should never be consumed. But those stalks are perfect for pies, jams, sauces, and even dishes with a savory twist. And here's a bonus. The more you cut, the more the plant keeps producing all season long. So what's your take on this? Does rhubarb deserve a place in your garden? Go ahead and drop your answer down in the comments section because I'm really curious to see how many of you are ready to give this perennial powerhouse a try. Moving along to number 8 on our list, we have Jerusalem artichokes. You might also know them as sunchokes. This is easily one of the most underestimated perennial crops you can put in your garden. And once you see what they can do, you'll completely understand why they deserve more attention. Here's what sets them apart. Jerusalem artichokes are remarkably tough. These tubers will flourish even in soil that's less than ideal. They handle drought conditions with ease, and they still manage to give you plentiful harvests year after year. In fact, once they take root in your garden, they'll return every single season without you lifting a finger. And here's something interesting. They're actually part of the sunflower family, which means they shoot up tall and add vertical beauty to your garden while simultaneously producing edible tubers beneath the soil. Planting Jerusalem artichokes is refreshingly simple. Just take the tubers and place them straight into the ground at a depth of about 3 to 5 inches, spacing them roughly 12 to 18 inches apart. They thrive in full sunlight and prefer loose soil with good drainage, though honestly, they're not very demanding. These plants can stretch up to 10 feet in height, so make sure you give them adequate space or consider planting them along the outer edges of your garden where they can serve as a natural barrier against wind. As far as care requirements go, these plants are honestly almost too simple. Water them when dry spells hit, but beyond that, they essentially look after themselves. In fact, the real challenge you'll face is keeping them from spreading too aggressively. Once they establish themselves, they multiply with enthusiasm. Some gardeners joke that Jerusalem artichokes are the perennial that never stops giving, and sometimes that's a bit more giving than you bargained for. Harvest time arrives in late fall. You'll want to wait until after the first frost touches them, because that's when their flavor transforms into something sweet and nutty. You can roast them just like you would potatoes, mash them into a creamy side dish, or even shave them raw over salads for a satisfying crunch. And here's the real magic. Any tubers that you accidentally leave behind in the soil will simply sprout again next spring, creating an automatic food supply that requires zero replanting. So let me put this question to you. Would you grow Jerusalem artichokes, even knowing they might claim an entire corner of your garden for themselves? Leave your answer in the comments below. I'm really interested to see just how adventurous you're willing to be. Landing at number 7, we have chives. This is one of the most effortless and satisfying perennial herbs you'll ever cultivate. Why should chives be on your radar? Because once they're in the ground, they'll reappear every single year, supplying you with a continuous stream of fresh greens that taste like onions. They're fantastic in salads, soups, and egg-based dishes, but there's more to them than just flavor. When they bloom, they produce beautiful flowers that draw bees and other pollinators straight to your garden. That means chives aren't just feeding you, they're actively helping every other plant in your garden become more productive. Let's talk about planting basics. Chives do their best work in full sunlight, though they'll manage just fine in partial shade if that's what you have available. Get them into rich soil that drains well, and give each plant about 8 inches of breathing room. And if you're working with limited garden space, here's good news. Chives absolutely thrive in pots and containers, which makes them ideal for patios, balconies, and even kitchen windowsills. Caring for chives requires virtually no effort. Keep the soil slightly moist and trim the plants back regularly to stimulate fresh growth. When the blooms appear, you have options. You can clip off the flowers to stop them from going to seed, or you can leave them in place to attract helpful insects to your garden. Either way, you'll always have a ready supply of fresh leaves within arm's reach. Harvesting couldn't be more straightforward. Just take a pair of scissors and snip the leaves about 2 inches above the soil line, and they'll continue regrowing throughout the entire season. Use them fresh in your cooking, toss them in the freezer for future meals, or dry them out to create a homemade seasoning that lasts all year long. Now here's a quick question for you. Would you keep chives planted in your main garden bed, or would you grow them in a container so you can grab them easily right outside your kitchen door? Drop your answer in the comments. I really want to know how you'd make use of this versatile herb. Arriving at number 6 is a bold, fiery perennial that's as indestructible as they come. Horseradish. This root crop is well known for its intense, spicy flavor, but what a lot of gardeners don't realize is just how incredibly low maintenance it actually is. Plant horseradish one time and it will return year after year, often spreading more vigorously and growing stronger the longer it stays in the ground. This is truly the definition of a plant it and forget it crop. When it comes to planting basics, horseradish performs best in full sun and in loose soil with good drainage. It's typically started from root cuttings. You'll plant them at a slight angle, about 2 inches below the surface, with each cutting roughly a foot away from the next. Once it establishes itself, horseradish becomes nearly impossible to kill. Caring for horseradish is minimal to the point of being almost non-existent. Give it water during extended dry periods, but other than that, it doesn't ask you for anything. In fact, your biggest concern will likely be controlling it, because horseradish can spread aggressively if you don't keep it in check. A smart strategy is to plant it in its own dedicated bed, or even better, grow it in a large container to prevent it from taking over your entire garden. When harvest time arrives, typically in late fall, you'll dig up those thick, pungent roots. Use them fresh to make homemade horseradish sauce. Grate them into pickles for added heat, or incorporate them into your favorite recipes whenever you want a fiery kick. And here's an added benefit. Any tiny root pieces that get left behind in the soil will sprout again, which means your next harvest is already guaranteed without any extra work. So let me ask you this. Would you add horseradish to your garden even if it meant you'd have to monitor its spreading roots? Let me know your answer in the comments, because this perennial is both incredibly powerful and incredibly persistent. Coming in at number 5, we have a true garden classic, asparagus. If there's one perennial that every dedicated gardener should grow, it's definitely this one. Here's why. Once asparagus crowns get established, they can continue producing for 15 to 20 years. That translates to 2 full decades of delicious, tender spears, all originating from a single planting. It might require some patience during the first year or two, but the long-term payoff is absolutely unmatched. When it comes to planting basics, asparagus thrives in full sunlight and soil that drains well. It's better to start with 1-year-old crowns rather than seeds, because crowns get established much faster. Dig a trench approximately 12 inches wide and 6 to 8 inches deep. Position the crowns inside the trench and cover them with just a few inches of soil. As the plants begin to grow upward, continue filling in the trench gradually until it becomes level with the surrounding ground. Space each crown about 18 inches apart, because these plants expand considerably over time. Caring for asparagus is straightforward, but it's important to do it right. Keep the bed free of weeds. Water the plants whenever dry spells hit, and add compost or organic fertilizer every spring to maintain their strength. Resist the urge to harvest anything during that first year. Let the crowns build up their energy reserves and establish deep root systems. By the 2nd or 3rd year, you'll be enjoying full harvests every single spring. When harvest time comes around, snap off the spears once they reach about 6 to 8 inches in height. The best part is that asparagus is one of the very first crops to emerge in spring, which makes it a welcome source of fresh vegetables when almost nothing else in your garden is ready yet. So here's my question for you. Would you dedicate a permanent section of your garden to asparagus, knowing it's going to feed you for the next 20 years? Leave a comment below. I want to see how many of you are prepared to make that kind of long-term investment in your garden. Moving on to number 4 on our list, we have sorrel. This is a leafy green that most gardeners completely overlook, but once you start growing it, you'll find yourself wondering how you ever managed without it. Sorrel is a perennial green with a bright, lemony flavor that brings a fresh twist to soups, sauces, salads, and even smoothies. Unlike annual greens that require constant replanting every single season, sorrel returns every spring on its own and delivers a steady harvest all season long. Planting sorrel is wonderfully straightforward. It does best in full sun, but it can also handle partial shade, which makes it adaptable for different areas of your garden. Get it into well-drained soil that's been enriched with plenty of compost, and space your plants about 12 to 18 inches apart. Once it settles in, it will continue producing leaves for years on end. Caring for sorrel is practically effortless. Just make sure it gets water during hot, dry weather and trim it back whenever it starts to flower. Cutting back the flowers helps extend your leaf harvest. It's hardy, resilient, and pests and diseases rarely cause it any problems. Harvesting sorrel couldn't be simpler. Pick the outer leaves once they reach about 4 to 6 inches in length, and the plant will keep sending up fresh new growth. Use the leaves fresh if you want that tangy kick, or cook them down into sauces where their lemon-like flavor really comes to life. Here's a fun question for you. Would you try sorrel in a fresh salad, or would you use it to make a refreshing soup? Share your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear how you'd enjoy this underrated perennial green. Reaching number 3, we have the impressive and delicious globe artichoke. This is a perennial that not only produces food for you, but also transforms your garden into something truly spectacular. Why does the globe artichoke stand out so much? For starters, it's visually stunning. You get tall stalks, silvery leaves, and large sculptural flower buds that are completely edible. Once you get it in the ground, an artichoke plant can keep producing for 5 years or even longer, rewarding you with high yields and gorgeous plants that look just as good as any ornamental you could buy. For planting basics, globe artichokes thrive in full sunlight and rich soil that drains well. Plant them about 3 feet apart, because these plants grow quite large and need plenty of room to expand. In cooler climates, you'll want to start them indoors and then transplant them outside after the danger of frost is past. In warmer regions, they'll thrive when planted directly in the garden. Caring for artichokes means providing them with consistent water, especially when the weather turns dry. and adding compost every year to keep the soil fertile and productive. They'll begin sending up multiple flower buds in their second year and beyond. And with the right care, you can harvest dozens of artichokes from just one plant each season. When harvest time arrives, cut the buds while they're still tight and compact. That's when they're at their most tender and flavorful. If you let them open up and flower, you'll get massive purple blooms that attract pollinators from all over. But harvesting them early gives you those classic artichokes that are perfect for steaming, roasting, or stuffing. So let me ask you this. Would you grow artichokes mainly for their tasty buds? Or would you leave some to bloom and decorate your garden with those incredible flowers? Leave a comment below. I'm curious to know how you'd use this dual-purpose plant. Arriving at number 2, we have blueberries. These are perennial fruit bushes that deliver sweet, nutritious harvests year after year. Blueberries aren't just delicious. They're also incredibly healthy, loaded with antioxidants, vitamins, and fiber. Once they get established, a single bush can keep producing for decades, and with proper care, you'll be picking bowl after bowl of berries every single summer. Planting basics are crucial when it comes to blueberries. They need acidic soil with a pH between 4.5 and 5.5, so you may need to amend your soil with peat moss or pine needles to get it right. They thrive in full sun, though they can tolerate some partial shade, and they should be spaced about 4 to 5 feet apart. Make sure to plant at least 2 different varieties for cross-pollination. This ensures you'll get bigger harvests and sweeter berries. When it comes to care, blueberries need consistent watering, especially when they're actively producing fruit. Mulch heavily with pine bark or wood chips to help conserve moisture and keep weeds under control. Prune them in late winter to remove old wood and encourage new growth. This keeps the bushes productive for many years to come. Harvest time is one of the most rewarding parts of growing blueberries. Once the berries turn deep blue and come off easily when you touch them, they're ready to eat. Use them fresh right off the bush, freeze them for smoothies, or turn them into jams and pies. And here's the bonus. As your bushes mature over the years, your harvests get bigger and bigger every single season. So here's a quick question for you. Would you plant blueberries mainly for fresh snacking, or would you grow them to stock up your freezer for year-round use? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you'd enjoy this garden favorite. And finally, we've reached number 1. This is one of the most fascinating perennial crops you can possibly grow. Walking onions, also called Egyptian onions. What makes these onions so incredibly unique? Unlike regular onions, walking onions literally replant themselves. At the top of their stalks, they form clusters of small bulbs known as topsets. As these topsets grow heavier, the stalk bends downward until it touches the ground, and those bulbs take root right where they land. Essentially, they walk across your garden season after season, spreading naturally without any help from you. Planting walking onions is remarkably easy. Simply start with a few bulbs. Place them about 6 inches apart in soil that drains well and give them full sunlight. Once they take root, they'll multiply and spread naturally, giving you an endless supply without requiring much effort at all. When it comes to care, these onions are nearly bulletproof. They tolerate cold winters without any trouble. They require very little water, and they resist most pests and diseases. Once they're in the ground, they'll return stronger every single year. Harvesting walking onions is incredibly flexible. You can snip the green tops like chives and use them in your cooking. You can pull the underground bulbs for a stronger onion flavor, or you can collect the topset bulbs to replant somewhere else or eat them fresh. Every single part of the plant is edible, which makes it one of the most efficient perennials you can possibly grow. So here's my final question for you. Would you grow walking onions for their unique self-planting ability, or simply for their endless harvest? Drop your answer in the comments, because this is one perennial that truly lives up to the phrase, plant once, harvest forever. Let's do a quick recap of our list of 9 perennial crops you only need to plant once. Rhubarb, hardy and long-lived. Jerusalem artichokes, resilient and productive. Chives, tasty and pollinator-friendly. Horseradish, bold and persistent. Asparagus, a classic crop with decades of harvest. Sorrel, a zesty, underrated leafy green. Globe artichoke, stunning and delicious. Blueberries, sweet, antioxidant-rich bushes. And number 1, walking onions, the self-planting perennial wonder. Together, these crops give you a garden that keeps producing food, saves you time, saves you money, and creates a sustainable food source for years to come. Plant them once, and your harvests will keep rolling in. If you enjoyed this video and want to grow smarter, not harder, make sure you hit subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss more gardening secrets like these. If you're excited to try these perennials, hit the like button and share this video with a friend who needs to know about low-maintenance gardening. Remember, gardening doesn't have to be a constant cycle of replanting and reworking. With perennials, you plant once and harvest forever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.